So with that, I would like to go ahead and start us off with our keynote presentation. I'm honored to have Dr. Michelle Schreiber from CMS. She is the director of the Center for Clinical Standards and Quality and the director of Quality Measurement and Value-Based Incentives Group at CMS. And she'll be giving us the CMS perspective on how the quality measure landscape is evolving. So thank you, Dr. Schreiber. Go ahead.
Thanks, Viet. I appreciate it. Let me do a sound check. Can I be heard? Yes?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak at today's Da Vinci conference. But I need to just clarify in my introduction, I'm not the director of CCSQ, that's Lee Fleischer. I am a deputy director, however. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Not a problem. I am, however, the director of the Quality Measurement and Value-Based Incentives Group as well. And I'm really pleased to talk today about CMS's strategy towards moving to all digital quality measurement. You know, we're really pleased at CMS to work with Da Vinci on a number of initiatives, including developing case studies for implementing digital quality measures, and also our initiatives to improve prior authorization. As we reach out to stakeholders, prior authorization and quality measures were identified as high burden, and we think the transition to digital ways of doing this will really help reduce burden as well as create a much better product. So I'm going to speak today on improving quality measurement through digital measures and the use of FHIR. Next slide, please. So we are clearly at an inflection point where we're moving away from the traditional hand abstracted measures where somebody had to read illegible notes and try and decipher them and put in information, and that quality information actually came back late. Sometimes quality information came back, you know, months or a year late, and they weren't as actionable. So we've been working on an electronic clinical quality strategy that's defined as data obtained from the EMR. And we envision even now a broader framework for digital quality measures, which may include the rich clinical data from the EMR that's in an ECQM, but also includes other digital sources, census information from downloadable patient devices. And we think quality measures are going to continue to evolve to represent this broader transformation of digital healthcare. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, CMS has been working on its ECQM strategy for a while. This is part of our overall strategy and action plan for quality measures. And let me just pause to mention that right now. CMS has developed their quality measurement action plan, and it includes several key strategies. One is alignment of quality measures, not only across CMS, but across the entire ecosystem. And we are pleased to work with AHIP and National Quality Forum to try and align measures across all payers. The second is this digital transformation, which is largely what we'll focus on here. But there's two other that's important. One is to always make sure that we're including the voice of the patient. And that means more patient-centered measures, and it also means more patient-reported outcomes. And finally, how do we use quality measurement to help promote equity and close the gaps and disparities? Our ECQM strategy, though, again, part of our digital strategy here, began with extensive stakeholder outreach and resulted in a multi-pronged approach for ECQMs. It included many initiatives, as you can see here, such as more reporting measure alignment, standardization of data elements, such as is found in our data element library, implementation of a collaborative measure development workspace, consolidated pre-submission of validation testing tools, and ECQM attribution research and pilots. I'll also note that many other measure developers have been working on their digital strategy, including, as you'll hear later, NCQA, as well as payers, providers, and other third parties. Next slide, please. At the CMS Quality Conference in 2020, which is just days before we were fully aware of the COVID pandemic, kind of seems like a decade ago, we announced our intention to transfer to fully digital measurement by 2025. Now, I grant you, this is a bold and aspirational goal that will require a lot of work, but we believe that this is an important direction. Digital quality measures will help enable a future of standard interoperable electronic data and data sharing, which we think can reduce the burden of data transfer through Fire API technology that's already required for interoperability. Digital data provides usable, timely data from multiple sources to support reliable and valid data measurement. It also allows us to have the seamless flow of data derived from usual clinical workflow that then informs quality measurement, which can produce timely feedback reports so that quality data is not a year or two old, and hopefully inform clinical decision support and quality improvement initiatives. We think it also offers the opportunity to leverage advanced analytics and will probably change the way quality measures actually look. Next slide, please. What exactly is then a digital measure? So we define them as quality measures that use one or more sources of health information and that are captured and can be transmitted electronically via interoperable systems. For example, as I mentioned before, the electronic medical record obviously is a tremendous source of clinical information, but also other systems, case management systems, administrative systems, devices, patient portals, HIE information, assessments, surveys, and other information so that you can see this is a broader scope than just ECQMs, and ECQMs are kind of a subset of digital quality measures. This allows for many potential sources of information. Next slide, please. But to achieve these goals, we need a coordinated strategy that builds on many activities, such as regulation, measurement priorities, technology, and tools. For example, the recent rules require providers and health plans to use Fire APIs, which will make data accessible for interoperability. ONC, whom we partner with closely, is working to standardize data elements through the US CDI. And many non-government approaches, such as the HL7 Fire Accelerator, public-private groups, are really advancing fire standards for use cases. Next slide. This next slide is a depiction of the strategy for advancing digital quality measures, and it centers around 4 key domains. One is improving the data quality, such as standardizing data elements. The next is advancing the technology to do this. The next is optimizing data aggregation, and then improving measure alignment across the continuum of care. This is a multi-year strategy, and it requires many contributors, including all of you, in a public and private collaboration. Next slide, please. We recognize that there are, of course, challenges to implementing the ECQMs. The current state, we have a slow adoption of some of the current standards and a necessity for a provider mapping, as well as some changes to clinical workflow. But we think the future state that we can create is so much better. And it's not really the technology that's the issue. It's the willingness and the capacity to change in order for us to get to this future state. And I think we're all very excited about it. Next slide. So in the current state, facilities have many different data sources, such as EMR, lab systems, pharmacy systems, bedside technology, and many use non-standard data models and formats. This also creates a challenging digital ecosystem for quality measurement as well as for clinical care. In the recent Cures Act, ONC and CMS have embraced the use of Fire API technology, which can be leveraged for reporting and measurement. Fire has been designed to leverage modern approaches in the broader computing industry, and Fire APIs can provide a standard view of data maintained in multiple data models to ease the burden of data sharing, aggregation, and transformation, which can help us achieve this low burden approach. Next slide. Advancing technology and transforming data through Fire makes system-wide queries possible and can also help us support other uses such as clinical decision support. There are multiple HL7 Fire Accelerator projects which are focusing on specific use cases. These are public and private efforts such as Da Vinci, we're all here today, or Codex, or the Gravity Project to define appropriate social determinants of health. All of these will really, I think, push the quality ecosystem and the digital ecosystem forward and support more rapid use of fire. Next slide. So already there's legislation to require providers to implement FHIR APIs that perform transformation functions for data interoperability. Interoperability requires EHRs to accommodate user requests for data, searching for and returning required data elements as needed. This schematic shows the healthcare data lifecycle. It's from capturing the data to standardizing it, to sharing, and then ultimately analyzing access to the data and interpretation and application. And these are all steps that have improvements to be made. Next slide. Now, in addition, for quality measurement, data obviously is used for analysis, and we have to calculate performance. So how does one do that? Modular measure calculation tools can bridge the gap between the interoperable EMR data and the data requests. So a purpose-built measure calculation tool can access the EMR data versus FHIR APIs and help produce reports in response to measure requests. These calculation tools can be implemented in many different ways: HIEs, quality measurement contractors, EMR vendors, third-party data aggregators, or by CMS itself. And we think this will be an interesting space for how to best analyze data and calculate reports. The next slide. CMS has been working on the development of its pathway or its digital blueprint to help inform the transition to fully digital measurement. We've engaged with a broad set of stakeholders, which is critical to the success for operationalizing this envisioned future state. And that includes probably all of you listening today. At this time, we're really in the early stages of consultation and collaboration, and have been and will be seeking input from multiple stakeholders, including payers, vendors, consensus setting bodies, measure developers, providers, and consumers. And we look forward actually to your comments today. I'd also point out, if you've seen the recent IPPS rule that I think was just posted on Friday, we do have an RFI, or request for comment and information, in our rules, seeking comment on the digital strategy that CMS is proposing. In other words, this transition to fully digital quality measurement. So we look forward to your formal comments through rule writing as well. Next slide. I want to point out one example of how this is actually starting to be used, and that's actually in the post-acute care space. So the PASIO project, which is Post-Acute Care Interoperability Project, is a collaborative effort to advance interoperable post-acute care data with other providers, linking providers, patients, and key stakeholders. This is through a consensus-based use case approach. It's working on technological solutions to provide provider-to-provider exchange of patient information. And so far, it's very exciting. We've successfully tested and exchanged a number of functional and cognitive status information data through recent connect-a-thons that we've held. Throughout the process, patients and caregivers are able to access patient health information via a mobile app. These demonstrations of real use case scenarios that leverage FHIR and interoperable data are very exciting. Next slide, please. I'd also note that in post-acute care, the Data Element Library, or we call the DEL, is a centralized public resource for post-acute care assessment, the data elements, question and response options that maps each data element to one or more nationally recognized health IT standards. The DEL was launched in 2018 to collect post-acute care assessment elements. However, we also recognize in the post-acute care world, there needs to be further widespread EMR use, but it's really making great progress, especially with use cases such as I've described. Next slide. I also mentioned as part of our CMS electronic clinical quality measure strategy, the Measure Collaboration Workspace. This contains a set of interconnected resources, tools, and processes for ECQMs which promote transparency and interaction across stakeholders. So we encourage you actually to visit the website and think that there are a number of useful resources for you there. Next slide, please. We do recognize there are challenges. There are challenges to this transition to fully digital measures and to fully, frankly, digital healthcare. Think about how far we've gone. Think even about the transition from healthcare these days in the explosion of telemedicine. There is a need for public-private partnerships to accelerate improvement. I would point out that one of the challenges is the adequacy of the workforce. Do we have the right workforce? Are they trained and are there enough of them to meet future needs? So I encourage you to be developing your workforce now. And as noted, there's much to be done, which is ongoing, but still much to be done, to standardize data elements, to improve quality measures, and if not change quality measures significantly, to best leverage digital technology. Next and final slide, please. Because despite these challenges, we're really encouraged by the future. The potential for a quality measurement system that's fully based on digital measures that will ultimately reduce the burden of reporting, provide many dimensions of data in a timely fashion, enable rapid feedback loops, transparent reporting, and really be the basis of ongoing learning systems. The new quality measurement paradigm can only be accomplished through the transformation to fully digital data, combined with interoperability and the ease of data sharing. So thank you for your attention today, and thank you really for all the work that you do to move us forward in these goals. And Viet, thank you. I turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schreiber. It's really great to have the support of CMS in really advancing interoperability. We've heard from other speakers this week, and CMS has been a great driving force and part of this industry and public collaborative through the Da Vinci Fire Accelerator.